Hi, this is Johns Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage, and we're back with week 3 of our daily history videos. Welcome back, or if you're joining us for the first time, welcome to my living room in Bolton Hill. Today we're going to go into a little bit of African American history in Baltimore. We're going to go stop at 2 places along Pennsylvania Avenue. But first, a little bit of background. Before the Civil War, Baltimore had one of the largest populations of African Americans of any city in the country. And after the Civil War, as families from the South moved north for better opportunities, the population swelled into the tens of thousands. And most of Baltimore's African Americans at that time lived in a neighborhood we now call Sharp Leadenhall, down near the harbor. But by the 1880s and the 1890s, that neighborhood became way overcrowded, and families were leaving to try to find better housing opportunities. And a lot of them were going to neighborhoods that we now know as Lafayette Square and Harlem Park, Sandtown Winchester, Upton, Druid Heights. And the main shopping area for those neighborhoods was Pennsylvania Avenue. The move didn't happen all at once, of course, and it often didn't happen very gently. By the 1930s, people like Lily Carroll Jackson were protesting along Pennsylvania Avenue. Most of the stores were owned by whites, and although they would allow African Americans to shop there, they wouldn't hire African Americans. And so Lily Carroll Jackson, one of the things she did was launch a campaign called Shop Where You Can Work, urging African American patrons not to go to stores that didn't hire African Americans. But some stores started to change and some establishments became African American owned, including in 1946, our first stop at the Sphinx Club on Pennsylvania Avenue. And it was one of the first nightclubs anywhere in the country owned by an African American, Phillip Tilghman. And he owned it and ran it from 1946 until he died in 1988. And the Sphinx Club was a private club. Only members and musicians were allowed in. Some of the greats, like Red Fox, played there. But it was also known as a place where musicians went when the other clubs closed. The Tijuana Club and the Ubangi Club and the Comedy Club, the Red Fox Club, all clubs around the corner from the Sphinx Club. When those let out, you would see a steady stream of musicians heading into the Sphinx Club. The other thing it was known for was politics, and if you were running for office in the day, you better make a stop at the Sphinx Club. And probably as much as anywhere in the city, there were backroom deals and handshakes over cigars made there to get people into office. Unfortunately, after Tillman's death in 1988, the Sphinx Club made it another 4 years, but then finally folded. It's currently empty, but there's a little bit of hope. There are at least 1 or 2 organizations interested in redeveloping it. Pennsylvania Avenue is the state's most recent designated arts and entertainment district, and with that, it's bringing and that designation is bringing a lot of interest and hope. All right, let's go over to our second stop, up to the corner of North Avenue in Pennsylvania for the Arch Social Club. And let me talk a bit about the building and then a little bit about the club itself. The building was built in 1912 as the Chance Theater, and it operated as a segregated theater, whites only, up until it was sold to another theater that also operated as a segregated theater until about 1945, when it was, with protest, forced to open its doors to all Baltimoreans. That was called Wilson's Theater. And then in 1950, Wilson's Theater became Wilson's Restaurant, including a pretty well-known upstairs banquet hall called Morgan Hall. But interestingly, when it became a restaurant, it went back to becoming segregated, a whites-only establishment. And that lasted until 1959, when a number of people and organizations, civil rights activists, protested, including the Congress of Racial Equality, CORE. And in 1959, Wilson's Restaurants became desegregated and allowed all Baltimoreans to eat there. That lasted until 1972, and that's when the Arch Social Club moved in. The Arch Social Club was founded in 1905 by three African American Baltimoreans who met at a restaurant on Arch Street. If you know where the University of Maryland Medical Campus is downtown, along Pratt Street, Arch Street is down in there. So that would have been right in a sweet spot still for a large number of African American families. They met at a place called Stokes's Restaurant, but by 1914 they had reorganized, calling themselves the Arch Social Club, and had moved into a rented space that was their own. They had their own clubhouse. Their mission was charity and fraternity, and part of really the national reform movement that was going on at the time. It's an all-men's club. It was founded as that, and it is still that today. In fact, it is either the oldest or maybe the second oldest African-American men's club in the country. The club purchased a building on Saratoga Street that it was in up through the 1970s, early 1970s. It dodged one bullet. It was almost raised to make way for the East-West Expressway, the road that we now call the Highway to Nowhere. But the route was changed and it was spared. But sadly, not for long. It did not dodge the bullet of the demolition and construction of the Social Security Administration. And that's when, in 1972, the club moved to its current location on Pennsylvania and North. It still is a social club today, oh wait, let me go back one period that's kind of interesting. During Prohibition, social clubs in Maryland, including the Arch Social Club, actually experienced kind of a boon. There was very lax enforcement of the alcohol laws, and as the students of Prohibition know, Maryland was the only state not to adopt the Volstead Act, the federal act creating Prohibition. We never kind of got around to adopting that, so our enforcement maybe was even more lax than in most states. In 2003, the Arch Social Club was designated as a historic landmark. In 2012, they renovated the exterior and incidentally got an award from Baltimore Heritage for it. And just last year received a fairly sizable grant to continue their renovations. So as the Pennsylvania Avenue Arts and Entertainment District gets underway, and the Arch Social Club continues its renovations, I think we've got only high hopes for that. I'm going to end with a little bit of a request, and it's not for Baltimore Heritage, but if you are out and about, 6 feet apart, of course, and want to walk up and down Pennsylvania Avenue, I'd encourage you to do so. But also say one of my friends, James Hanlon, who owns a place called the Avenue Bakery, just down the street from the Arch Social Club. James has fantastic sweet rolls and dinner rolls that he calls Poppy's rolls. But he also probably knows more about Pennsylvania Avenue's African American history than anybody I know. So go in there, get a roll, and look at the displays on the walls of history along the avenue, and then ask for James, and he will tell you a ton more. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, you got it on card, pal. No, this is all right. Oh, okay.